Captain Vena Castrix stood motionless before the quantum display aboard the Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion, her scaled hands clasped tightly behind her back. The massive vessel, over 3 kilometers in length, represented the pinnacle of Imperial engineering, or so they had always believed. The anomaly pulsing on her screen suggested otherwise. "Report," she commanded, her voice carrying the distinctive metallic resonance of her drachnid heritage. The bridge crew, a carefully selected mix of the Empire's finest, worked with practiced efficiency around her. Lieutenant Frost, a pale-skinned Luminian whose bioluminescent markings flickered with anxiety, spoke up from his sensor station. "The energy signature remains constant, Captain. It's unlike anything in our database. The quantum fluctuations suggest technology far beyond our current understanding." Vena's inner eyelids flickered, a rare sign of agitation. The Empire had ruled the known galaxy for 15 millennia, their technological supremacy unchallenged. The appearance of this anomaly in restricted space sector 17, site of the ancient Zetharian extinction, was more than coincidence. "Message from High Command, Captain," announced Communications Officer Rin Morton, his cybernetic implants gleaming under the bridge's ambient lighting. "They're ordering all available ships to converge on our position. The Eternal Dominion is to lead the investigation." "Acknowledged." Vena's talons clicked against the command rail as she considered their options. "What's the status of the advance probe?" "Approaching the anomaly now," Frost reported. "Live feed initiating in 3, 2, 1. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the probe's perspective as it neared the swirling distortion in space. The anomaly resembled a tear in reality itself, edges shimmering with impossible colors that hurt to look at directly. "Energy spike," Frost shouted suddenly. "The anomaly is." The probe's feed dissolved into static. When it cleared seconds later, Vena felt her heart skip a beat. Where empty space had been moments before, a vessel now hung in the void. Its design was organic, almost alive, with surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. "Impossible," whispered Tactical Officer Quinn Darius, his dark skin ashen. "That ship, it's Zetharian." Vena's spinal ridges stiffened. The Zetharians had been eliminated 15,000 years ago when they refused to submit to Imperial rule. Their civilization had been made an example of, their worlds bombarded into sterility, their technology destroyed or claimed by the Empire. Or so the historical records claimed. Multiple contacts. Frost's markings were pulsing rapidly now, ships appearing throughout the sector, dozens, hundreds. "Battle stations," Vena ordered, her training taking over. "All hands to combat positions. Signal the fleet." "Captain," Morton interrupted, his cybernetics crackling with unusual interference. "We're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on frequencies we thought were theoretical." On screen, the view screen shifted, and Vena found herself staring at a figure that should not exist. The being's form was distinctly Zetharian, tall, ethereal, with crystalline growths that seemed to capture and reflect light in hypnotic patterns. But where historical Zetharians had been purely organic, this one appeared to have evolved into something more. Something that blurred the line between biology and technology. "I am Naira Dex," the figure announced, its voice resonating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "Last appointed guardian of the Zetharian consciousness, your empire believed it had erased us from existence. Instead, you forced us to transcend." Vena's military training warred with her scientific curiosity. "The Zetharian extinction is historical fact. Your worlds were destroyed." "Our worlds, yes." Naira's crystalline features shifted in what might have been amusement. "But you failed to understand our true nature. When faced with extinction, we chose evolution. We learned to exist between dimensions, in spaces your empire never thought to look. For 15,000 years, we have watched, waited, and grown." "Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace," Frost reported urgently. "Imperial reinforcements arriving. They're moving to surround the Zetharian vessels." Naira's expression remained serene. "Your empire's time of unchallenged dominion is over, Captain Castrix. We return not for revenge but for restoration. The galaxy suffers under imperial stagnation. Change is coming." The deck beneath Vena's feet vibrated as the Eternal Dominion's weapons systems automatically charged, standard protocol when unknown vessels entered weapons range. She raised a hand to order them powered down, but it was too late. "Enemy vessels charging weapons," Darius announced, then paused in confusion. "No, they're not weapons signatures there. Captain, the Zetharian ships are emitting some kind of quantum field." The view screen showed the impossible happening. The Imperial ships, pride of the galaxy's greatest civilization, began to fade like ghosts. Their solid metal hulls became transparent, then translucent, then vanished entirely into whatever space the Zetharians had learned to inhabit. "What have you done?" Venna demanded, watching helplessly as ship after ship disappeared. "We have removed them from this plane of existence," Naira explained calmly. "They are unharmed, merely displaced. Consider this a demonstration. Your empire can choose to evolve with us, Captain Castrix, or it can fade into history. The choice will be yours to help make." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Through the view screen, Venna watched as the Zetharian vessels began to fade as well, pulling back into whatever dimensional spaces they now called home. Only the Eternal Dominion remained untouched. "Orders, Captain," Morton asked quietly. Venna stared at the empty space where dozens of Imperial ships had been moments before. Everything she had been taught about Imperial supremacy, about the galaxy's history, had just been proven false. Whatever happened next would reshape the known universe. "Send word to High Command," she said finally. "The galaxy as we know it just changed forever. The ghosts of our past have returned, and they are far more than mere echoes." As her crew rushed to comply, Venna continued to watch the spot where the Zetharian ships had vanished. For 15 millennia, the Empire had ruled through technological superiority and the fear of absolute power. Now, faced with technology that made their greatest achievements look primitive, that era was ending. The real question was, what would rise to take its place? Grand Archivist Thuron Vale moved silently through the restricted section of the Imperial Archives, his ancient access card trembling in his weathered hands. After 6 decades of loyal service cataloging the Empire's secrets, he had never accessed the sealed records of the Zetharian extinction. Until today. The news had spread through classified channels, ghost ships appearing across the galaxy, Imperial vessels vanishing without trace, and a name that should have been lost to history, Naira Dex. The emergence of living Zetharians had shaken the Empire's foundations, and now the truth could no longer remain buried. "Security override accepted," the Archive's AI announced as Thuron pressed his palm against the scanner. "Welcome, Grand Archivist." The hermetically sealed doors hissed open, revealing rows of quantum crystal storage units. Each contained memories too dangerous for standard historical records. Thuron moved to Terminal ZX-15, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Display historical record, Zetharian conflict, Imperial year 80 5421. The air around him shimmered as the Archive's immersive projection system activated. Thuron found himself standing in the midst of a scene from 15 millennia ago, the last recorded meeting between Imperial High Command and the Zetharian Council. "Your demand for autonomy is denied," declared a younger Emperor Vertex III, his ceremonial armor gleaming. "The Empire requires access to your quantum manipulation technology. You will submit to Imperial authority." The Zetharian representatives stood tall, their crystalline forms catching the light. Their spokesperson, bearing a striking resemblance to the current Naira Dex, addressed the Emperor with quiet dignity. "Our technology is bound to our consciousness, our very being. What you ask is not merely submission, it is the death of who we are." "Then death it shall be." The projection shifted, showing scenes of devastation. Imperial warships descending on Zetharian worlds, unleashing weapons that turned crystalline cities to ash. But something caught Thuron's trained eye: subtle discrepancies in the footage, parts that seemed edited or altered. "Computer, analyze original source material for tampering." "Warning," the AI responded. "Accessing pre-edit archives requires Omega-level clearance." Thuron's hands shook as he inserted a crystal key into the terminal, one given to him years ago by his mentor, with strict instructions to use it only in the dire circumstances. "Override, Protocol Phoenix." The scene before him flickered, revealing the true historical record. The Zetharian cities hadn't merely been destroyed, they had shifted somehow, their very substance seeming to fold into impossible dimensions moments before the Imperial weapons struck. The Empire hadn't eliminated the Zetharians, they had driven them to transcend physical space itself. "Most interesting choice of archives, Thuron." The archivist spun to find High Inquisitor Marcos Vex standing in the doorway, his black uniform adorned with the silver insignia of Imperial intelligence. The man's cybernetic eye glowed ominously in the dim light. High Inquisitor Thuron managed his throat dry. I was merely discovering why our ancestors lied about the Zetharian extinction. Marcos stepped into the room, the doors sealing behind him. Why every record was altered to show their destruction rather than their evolution. The Empire claimed total victory, but they escaped. Not escaped. Marcos's organic eye narrowed. Transcended. The Zetharians achieved what our scientists had only theorized, existence in quantum space beyond traditional dimensions. The Empire couldn't allow word of such advancement to spread. Better to claim their extinction than admit our inferiority. In the projection around them, scenes continued to play. Imperial ships bombarding empty worlds, claiming victory over an enemy that had already evolved beyond their reach. Decades of hunting down any suggestion that the Zetharians might have survived. And now they've returned, Thuron whispered. Yes, Marcos moved to the terminal, his cybernetic implants interfacing directly with the system. Which is why I'm here. High Command has ordered all records of the true Zetharian transcendence erased. Permanently. You can't, Thuron stepped forward. This is our history, the truth. The truth, Marcos laughed coldly. The truth is that 15,000 years ago, we encountered a civilization so advanced that rather than submit to us, they chose to evolve beyond physical existence. The truth is that they've spent millennia watching us, growing stronger while we stagnated in our perceived superiority. The truth, Archivist Vale, is that the Empire's foundation of supreme power is built on a lie. New data began flowing across the screens, reports from across the galaxy. Imperial stations going dark, ships vanishing, entire defense networks failing as Zetharian vessels phased through supposedly impenetrable barriers. They're not just returning, Marcos continued, his voice tight with controlled fear. They're awakening something. Quantum fluctuations are being detected in every system where their ships appear. It's as if reality itself is remembering how to bend. Thuron watched as footage from the Eternal Dominion played across the screens. The Zetharian ships, their impossibly fluid architecture defying known physics. Naira Dex, speaking of evolution and change, what will the Empire do? What it has always done, survive at any cost. Marcos's cybernetic eye flared. High Command has initiated Protocol Omega. Every record of the Zetharians' true fate will be purged. Every witness to their return will be silenced. The Empire will meet this threat as it has met all others with absolute force. But they've already proven our weapons are useless against them. Have they? Marcos smiled thinly. For 15,000 years, we've been reverse engineering what little Zetharian technology we recovered, trying to understand their quantum manipulation abilities. We never succeeded in replicating their evolution, but we did create alternatives. The screens shifted again, showing heavily classified research facilities deep within Imperial space. Massive devices under construction, their purpose unclear but somehow threatening even through the footage. The Empire will not fade, Marcos declared. If we cannot rule this dimension, we will destroy it and rebuild it in our image. Protocol Omega isn't just about erasing history, it's about unmaking it. Thuron felt his blood run cold as understanding dawned. You're going to try to collapse quantum space itself. With the Zetharians inside it, better to rule in a diminished universe than share power in a greater one. Marcos turned to leave, then paused. I apologize, Archivist Vale, but Protocol Omega requires no witnesses to the truth. As the High Inquisitor raised his weapon, Thuron closed his eyes. His last thought was a hope that somehow, someone would survive to remember the truth, not just about the Zetharians, but about an empire so afraid of change that it would destroy existence itself to maintain control. The shot never came. Opening his eyes, Thuron found himself in a space that defied description, crystalline structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, surfaces that flowed like liquid thought. Marcos stood frozen, his weapon still raised but now seemingly as distant as a star. Your records were more accurate than you knew, Archivist Vale, came a familiar voice. Naira Dex stepped out of what appeared to be a fold in reality itself. We have indeed been watching, and now we need your help to prevent the Empire from committing its greatest atrocity yet. Around them, the impossible architecture of quantum space pulsed with potential, while in the normal dimension, time stood still. The true war for the galaxy's future was about to begin, and its first battle would be fought not with weapons but with truth. Chief Scientist Raven Zendris stared at the quantum containment chamber, her augmented vision struggling to process what she was seeing. Inside, a fragment of Zetharian crystal pulsed with impossible energy patterns, existing simultaneously in multiple quantum states. After 20 years of leading the Empire's most classified research facility, Project Horizon, she had never seen anything like it. "Status report," she commanded, her cybernetic spinal implants interfacing directly with the facility's systems. "The sample continues to evolve," responded Dr. Jin Nomura, his holographic form flickering beside her. As the facility's quantum mechanics expert, he had chosen to exist primarily in digital space years ago. "It's not just changing shape, it's changing its fundamental relationship with reality." Through the reinforced observation windows of Complex Zero, Raven watched as teams of scientists worked on the massive quantum collapse engines. The Empire's ultimate weapon, designed to destroy not just their enemies but the very dimensional spaces they inhabited. The project had seemed theoretical, almost absurd, until the Zetharians returned. "Director Zendris," her comm system chimed. "Priority transmission from Imperial High Command." The massive screens surrounding her workstation flickered to life, revealing High Inquisitor Marcos Vex. His expression was grim. "The situation has deteriorated. The Zetharians have taken Grand Archivist Vale." Raven's artificial heart skipped a beat. "Taken how?" "They pulled him into quantum space right in front of me. Our worst fears are confirmed. They can shift organic matter between dimensions at will." Marcos's cybernetic eye pulsed with barely contained rage. "How soon can the quantum collapse engines be ready?" Before Raven could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red warning lights bathed the complex in crimson as security barriers began automatically engaging. "Breach in Sector 7, the facility's AI announced. "Unknown quantum signatures detected, security protocols failing." "They're here," Marcos snarled. "Protect the engines at all costs." If the Zetharians, the transmission cut off abruptly. Raven spun toward the main laboratory just as reality seemed to fold in on itself. Where empty space had been moments before, three figures now stood. Naira Dex, Grand Archivist Vale, and impossibly, Professor Kine Wolf, Raven's mentor who had vanished a decade ago while researching Zetharian artifacts. "Hello, Raven," Kine said softly, his aged features bearing the same kind smile she remembered. But now his form seemed to shimmer, partially crystalline like the Zetharians. "We need to talk about Project Horizon." "Security teams to main lab," Raven commanded, reaching for the quantum disruptor at her hip. "This is a restricted." "They can't hear you," Naira interrupted, her crystalline form refracting light in hypnotic patterns. "We've shifted this section of the facility slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. We are having this conversation in the space between moments." Jin's holographic form flickered rapidly as he tried to process what his sensors were telling him. "The quantum readings, they're beyond anything we theorized possible. They're not just manipulating space, they're rewriting the fundamental laws of reality." "No," Kine corrected gently. "We're working with reality's true nature. The universe isn't built on rigid laws, Raven. It's built on possibility, on potential. The Zetharians didn't break the rules, they transcended them." Thuron Vale stepped forward, his archivist's robe still bearing the scorch mark from Marcos's near miss. "Show her, Professor. Show her what we found in the true records." Kine raised his hand, and the air around them transformed into a three-dimensional historical display. Raven watched in stunned silence as scenes played out. The original Zetharian civilization discovering quantum consciousness, their efforts to share their discoveries with other species, and the Empire's violent rejection of any power that could challenge its supremacy. "We didn't choose transcendence purely to escape death," Naira explained. "We chose it because we saw the true potential of consciousness itself. The universe isn't just physical space and energy, it's thought, possibility, and change given form." "The quantum collapse engines," Raven whispered, horrified understanding dawning. "They wouldn't just destroy quantum space. They would destroy consciousness itself," Kine confirmed. "Every being's potential to evolve, to transcend their current limitations. The Empire isn't just trying to eliminate us, they're trying to permanently limit the very nature of existence." Jin's holographic form stabilized as he processed the implications. "That's why my digital consciousness experiments kept failing. The Empire wasn't trying to advance our understanding, they were containing it." Raven moved to the quantum containment chamber, staring at the crystalline fragment with new understanding. "All these years, we thought we were studying Zetharian technology, But it was never about technology, was it? No, Naira confirmed. What you're seeing is a fragment of crystallized consciousness, a piece of our collective evolution made manifest. We didn't build machines to transcend dimensions. We evolved to understand that dimensions themselves are simply different frequencies of thought. Warning klaxons continued to blare beyond their quantum bubble as Imperial forces mobilized throughout the facility. But within their suspended moment, Raven faced a decision that would reshape not just the galaxy, but the nature of existence itself. The Empire is dying, Thuron said quietly, not from external threats but from its own fear of change. Every species has the potential to evolve, to grow beyond their current limitations. The Empire's response is to try to freeze reality itself. They'll never stop, Raven realized, thinking of the countless projects she'd led, all designed to maintain Imperial control rather than advance true understanding. Even if the collapse engines fail, they'll keep trying to limit consciousness itself rather than risk losing power. Which is why we need your help, Kine said. You understand both Imperial technology and the true nature of quantum mechanics. You can help us prevent this atrocity, but more importantly, you can help guide humanity's evolution once the Empire falls. Naira's form shifted, creating a bridge of crystalline light between dimensions. The choice is yours, Raven. Continue serving an empire that would destroy consciousness itself, or help us teach the galaxy how to transcend its limitations. Through the quantum suspension, Raven could see Imperial forces preparing the collapse engines for emergency activation. One command from her could start a chain reaction that would destroy quantum space forever. Instead, she reached out toward the crystalline bridge, feeling reality itself shift around her. How do we stop them, she asked. We show them the truth, Naira replied, all of them at once. The crystalline structures around them began to pulse with energy as the Zetharians prepared to reveal themselves not just to the facility, but to every consciousness in Imperial space simultaneously. The true war wouldn't be fought with weapons, but with enlightenment itself. As Raven's consciousness began to expand beyond physical limitations, she caught a glimpse of what the Zetharians had become, not just evolved beings, but living gateways to humanity's next stage of existence. The Empire had tried to write a story of extinction, but instead had catalyzed an evolution that would transform the galaxy forever. The moment of revelation was about to begin. Admiral Thaddeus Drake stood on the bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Sovereign Decree, watching his fleet tear itself apart. Across the massive holographic display, indicators flickered between red and green as ships declared loyalty either to the Empire or to the growing rebellion. The revelation of the Zetharians' truth had shattered 15 millennia of absolute control in mere days. Status report, he demanded, his cybernetic vocals carrying the weight of 40 years of command. Chaos, sir, replied Commander Phoenix Ash, her dark skin illuminated by the emergency lighting. Quantum disturbances are spreading across all sectors. We're receiving reports of mass enlightenment events on over 300 worlds. The Imperial Truth Ministry can't contain the information anymore. Through the bridge windows, Drake watched as another Imperial battlecruiser vanished into quantum space, its crew choosing evolution over loyalty. The sight brought bile to his throat. Everything he had fought for, everything the Empire had built, was unraveling. Message from Imperial Prime, Phoenix announced. High Command is, they're activating the Omega Protocol across all remaining loyal systems. Drake's artificial eye whirred as it zoomed in on the transmission details. They're going to trigger all the quantum collapse engines simultaneously. That's suicide. The dimensional backlash would. Sir, Lieutenant Orion Wells interrupted from the sensor station. Multiple quantum signatures appearing. It's the Eternal Dominion. The massive Imperial flagship materialized before them, but it had changed. Its hull now rippled with crystalline formations, marking it as one of the first ships to undergo what was being called the conscious evolution. On its bridge stood Captain Vena Castrix, but she too had transformed, her drachnid features now incorporating elements of Zetharian crystalline structure. Admiral Drake, Vena's voice resonated across multiple frequencies. The Empire has chosen extinction over evolution. We cannot allow this. Drake gripped his command rail. You abandoned your oath, Captain. The Empire gave you everything. The Empire gave us chains disguised as glory, Vena countered. Look around you, Thaddeus. Look with more than your cybernetic eyes. Reality itself is awakening, remembering what it means to be infinite. and the Empire's response is to try to destroy consciousness rather than let it grow beyond their control. On the tactical display, more ships were appearing, vessels that had gone missing over the past weeks, now returned with their crews transformed. They took up positions around the sovereign decree, not threatening but offering protection from what was coming. Sir, Phoenix said quietly, we're receiving new data from the quantum collapse sites. The engines, they're not just designed to destroy quantum space. They're meant to reset universal constants themselves, to rewrite the fundamental laws of reality so that consciousness can never evolve beyond imperial control. Drake felt his world tilt. That's impossible, even the Empire wouldn't. Incoming transmission, Orion announced. It's Professor Kine Wolf. The holographic projection showed Kine standing alongside Nyra Dex and Raven Zendris in what appeared to be the transformed Project Horizon facility. All three had evolved, their forms representing a perfect merger of physical and quantum existence. The Empire plans to commit omnicide, Kine stated without preamble. Not just the death of species, but the death of potential itself. They would rather rule a limited universe than allow consciousness to expand beyond their grasp. Nyra stepped forward, her crystalline form pulsing with urgent energy. We've detected activation sequences beginning at all quantum collapse sites. Once triggered, they cannot be stopped. The only choice remaining is evolution or extinction. Analysis confirms, Phoenix reported, her hands flying over her console. Quantum collapse cascades initiating in all major Imperial systems. Estimated time to universal constant rewrite, 17 minutes. Drake looked around his bridge at the crew he had led through countless battles. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. The Empire had been his life, his purpose. But now. Show me, he commanded. Show me what you showed the others. Reality shifted. In an instant, Drake's consciousness expanded beyond physical limitations. He saw the truth the Empire had hidden, not just about the Zetharians, but about the nature of existence itself. The universe wasn't meant to be controlled. It was meant to evolve, to grow, to transcend its own limitations. He saw Imperial ships across the galaxy making the same choice, their crews choosing enlightenment over extinction. The crystalline transformation spread like a wave of awakening, each evolved consciousness becoming a beacon for others. Orders, sir? Phoenix asked, though her form was already beginning to shimmer with the first signs of transformation. Drake straightened his uniform one last time. Signal all ships, the Empire we served is dead. It died the moment it chose to destroy existence rather than allow it to grow. He turned to face Vena's transmission. The sovereign decree stands with evolution. Around them, space itself seemed to sing as the ship and its crew began their transformation. The crystalline structures that grew weren't just changes to physical form, they were manifestations of expanding consciousness, of minds breaking free from artificial limitations. Multiple quantum collapse engines now activating, Orion reported, his voice resonating across dimensions as he evolved. Dimensional shockwave approaching. Let it come, Nyra declared. We will meet it with the full power of awakened consciousness. The combined fleet, former Imperial ships now transformed alongside Zetharian vessels, took up formation around the collapse sites. They weren't fighting with weapons anymore, but with enlightenment itself. Each evolved consciousness added to their collective power, creating a quantum barrier that would either save existence or transcend it entirely. As the quantum collapse wave approached, Drake understood finally what the Empire had feared most. Not defeat, not submission, but the recognition that control itself was an illusion. True power lay in the courage to evolve, to become more than what you were built to be. The wave hit. Reality shuddered. And consciousness, finally unchained, began to soar. In the space between moments, as universal constants themselves trembled between destruction and transcendence, the true battle for the future began. Not with weapons or ships or even quantum technology, but with a simple choice repeated across countless minds. Evolve or perish. And in that moment of decision, the galaxy itself held its breath.